I am Dario Franchitti, and this is Cars and Culture with Jason Stein.
Dario, what a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome into Cars and Culture.
Good to be here.
So you're at Indianapolis, and we're celebrating the month of Indy to some extent on this show. And Indy, in and of itself, is a bit of a homecoming for you in more ways than one. But most importantly, it's just awful weather, right?
It is. I've got a huge jacket just behind the camera, which I've been wearing. It's it's damp. It's freezing cold. I left London in beautiful sunshine, came here freezing cold, and we're attempting to get the second day of practice underway of a 2-day test, and it's looking difficult right now. I'm sitting in the engineering truck of Chip Ganassi Racing. Normally this room's full of 16 engineers, but they're all in the garage area, so I've got the whole room to myself at the moment. Sorry about the very bland background.
What does it mean for you to be back in Indianapolis every time you come back?
Whenever I fly in, and you fly in from the east and you see the speedway, it feels very, very special. And to drive in, it's a place that's really become part of my life. And the month of May, my wife, my daughters will be here, and to share that with them and share this love that I have of this place and everything it's meant to my life and everything it's given me. It's a very, very special place. I did some filming yesterday with the track president, Doug Bowles, and just to stand in the Yard of Bricks or to stand in turn one to look up at the pagoda, it's kind of emotional, actually.
Emotional in so many ways. When you think back to your most important moments, what strikes you as being something that really sticks out? What's the moment that sticks out for you? Was it the first, second, or the third?
I think one moment is going to be that last lap with Takuma Sato for the third. The other wins were more of a sort of a race long thing, but that last one, it sort of all distilled down into that one sort of microsecond of contact and everything, and so that was, I think that's the one that really sticks in my head.
Growing up, how important was Indianapolis for you, or was it even in your sights? I mean, I know you had heroes through the years. Jim Clark was obviously an enormous hero of yours, but what really sticks out?
I wanted to be an F1 driver. And there came a crossroads in 1997 when I had an opportunity through Mercedes-Benz to go to IndyCar, or there wasn't anything in F1, of course. Then I committed to kart, as it was at the time. And by that point, I was well aware of the Indy 500. I remember watching Danny Sullivan spin and win. And my little brother had a computer game, an Indy 500 computer game. It was sort of the press Q and A to accelerate, and then the left and right. It was very basic stuff, but I remember spending hours trying to perfect the setup to go around the speedway at the time, and that was and he reminded me of that actually after my first win. He said, "Remember that bloody game we used to play just for hours on end?" And so it lived large in my life, but and as a historian of the sport, somebody that really appreciates the history, it was obviously that was a big deal. But when I first came here in 2002, I didn't really get it, and that sort of, by the time 2003 came along and I had to miss the race, I understood, I think, a bit more about it. And by the time I stopped in 2013, it had become an all-consuming passion, love affair, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, you had said at one point when I first showed up in Indianapolis, it was like, this is just another race. And the more that you did it, the more you appreciated the 500 and the history and how the whole thing really comes into play. And then winning the race really put it on a different level, really raised you to a different level mentally in terms of what you were thinking of relative to the race. And how do you try to translate that to younger drivers now?
I think it happens organically. I do. I think you've seen, I think the biggest example recently for me was when Rossi showed up, and he was just sort of, whatever. And he won the race, and he was kind of, okay. And then you watched him sort of transform as the year went on as the winner, and he started to realize what it meant to be an Indy 500 winner. And I've watched a lot of drivers come through since I retired here at Chip Ganassi Racing, and watch them all click with it. Watch them suddenly this moment when they go, okay, I get it. I get what this means. And it might be in the first year, it might be in the second year, but they all eventually get hooked.
They all get hooked. When you think back to your start in karting, and you mentioned the Formula One ambition, did the dream, being a karting guy originally, was it the dream that everybody shared that they would eventually get to that Formula One point, the crossroads that they would make it at that level? Was it the dream that everybody shared?
I think so. I think, well, when you're 10 years old, yeah, at that point, it's like anything's possible, isn't it? Some guys want to be an astronaut. I wanted to be, I wanted to be an F1 driver. And then as I became a teenager, I realized how difficult this was actually going to be to even get on those first steps of the ladder. And so when I started racing cars, and my parents spent every penny they had on those, karting in that first year of racing, I got involved with Jackie Stewart, and I started racing for Paul Stewart Racing. I realized how difficult it was going to be. And then my sort of ambitions changed. I was like, I just want to be a professional driver at this point. And then there was times through that sort of early years that F1 became a real option. And then when I committed to come to the States, as usual, they commit one direction and then the F1 stuff starts happening. And I did some tests and things, but it became, the situation was I wanted to drive a front running car, whatever it was. And I was offered some mid-grid to back-of-grid F1 stuff, and I just had no interest. My motivation is to win. And I wasn't going to be in a position to do that. And I didn't want to give up a front-running IndyCar ride to get in a back-of-the-grid F1 ride. It was never my ambition to be an F1 driver. It was to win in Formula One. So then the challenge of IndyCar took over. Street course one week, short oval the next, road course the next, super speedway, and trying to be good in all those disciplines was hard enough.
What were you going to be if you weren't going to be a race car driver? Was it an astronaut?
We actually talked about that the other day. I had no interest in going into space. I really don't. I think it would be something to do with cars, probably classic cars more than anything. But I think racing has taught me so much, and I think that I'm not sure I would have, as a person, been able to perform to the same level, that attention to detail that I have now, whether it's in all walks of life. I think racing and the people I met through racing gave me that sort of that outlook on life. But I think it would be something to do with cars. The passion was there from such a young age, and unfortunately, my bank balance is still there today.
And your brother is an exceptional endurance racer. His credentials are exceptional. Marino, was he in some ways equally inspiring with the things that he did?
Marino, as you say, his CV speaks for itself. Winning Sebring overall, Petit Le Mans, multiple podium, multiple winner there. He's done it all. But I always felt Marino, he cut his own path because he didn't want to be in my shadow, brother off. And I was the older brother, and I was sort of leading the charge a bit. And he got in karting. He always got the sort of the off cut bits. I got all the latest stuff, and he made his own path, and he made a successful career. Sometimes I don't think he got the recognition he deserved for what he achieved. Again, unfortunately, simply because he was my brother, but he's done some incredible things. If you look on my whether it's a new car or an old car, look on my Instagram. He's driving this 250 GTO 1964 thing and just watching what he's doing in it, or the 250F Maserati, or any of these things. He is just mighty, and
he drives a Goodwood actually on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, he does. We tend to race against each other now at the revival and stuff, but I think he's a little little more successful than I am. He's a little more committed than I am. A little quicker around Goodwood, but let's keep that to ourselves.
And your cousin, Paul Di Resta, former Formula One road racer and a road racer, who's on the BBC now. So this is in the blood. This is what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, unbelievably talented as well, and he got that F1 chance. But it's interesting watching his development since he left F1. He's now got a factory drive in the Peugeot in World Endurance, but having now seen life from as a member of the media for the Sky F1 broadcast team and everything. I think he's a much more rounded person. He understands life a bit more, but his talent just was never in question.
Yeah. When you think about the impact that you've had on the sport and that your family has had on the sport, what astonishes you about all of that? Is there anything surprising still?
From a personal point of view, I still get surprised about the opportunities that I was given. In this life, you've got to have some luck in getting involved with Jackie Stewart at a very early age. That was one of the first key things, becoming a factory Mercedes driver. Carl Hogan asking me to come and test because Paul Morgan, who was one of the names at Ilmore, one of the head guys at Ilmore, along with Mario Ilian, he decided he wanted to help me. Driving for Barry Green, being in the right place at the right time when Chip was looking for a driver in 2009 after my sort of disastrous NASCAR thing. You've got to have a bit of luck there, but then you've got to take advantage of the situation. So I feel very fortunate to have been given those opportunities, and I think I, in the most part, took full advantage of them.
A lot of people don't. Well, you just mentioned disastrous NASCAR, so we might as well go down that road.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
What'd you learn about that? What surprised you?
I learned a lot about myself because I went from being that year's Indy 500 and IndyCar champion to running mid-pack, at least on a good day, mid-pack in a cup car. And I learned humility again, I think. I learned how hard I had to work to learn something new, and I learned to drive a car out with my comfort zone. And I think all that really helped me when it came to coming back to IndyCar and having that opportunity with Ganassi. I think I was a much better driver, having driven cars that I really had no clue what they were going to do, how they were going to react, and had no reference point either. I didn't have teammates. Jimmy's going through a similar thing just now. Jimmy Johnson going
the opposite way. Yeah,
the opposite. But
we've had him on the show. Yeah, he's actually talked about that.
Yeah, he's got 4 great teammates here, and without being modest, he's got me guiding him. He's got all this data, all these amazing engineers. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. But anyway, it comes down to the fact that at the end of the day, I did the deal without driving a car. Didn't know what it was going to feel like, and I realized pretty quickly that an Indy car got my pulse racing and excited me like nothing I'd driven before or since. And I missed racing them, and I certainly missed Indy 500. So I was fortunate to get the opportunity to come back, and we went on quite a tear for a while.
Was it shocking to you how different all of it was?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I get to Talladega for the first run in the car, and I had to ask the guys how to start the car. Where was reverse? How did I find pit lane? Then I was asked, did I speak English?
Oh,
and then I literally drove out of the pit lane. And I remember clearly in my head as I shifted through the gears, it was a restrictor plate car, so I didn't have much horsepower. And I just thought, what have I done? Yeah. So it was a baptism of fire. And then my first proper test was in the Cup car, was Atlanta Motor Speedway. And Kurt Busch passed me. And I drive a car very straight. And Jackie Stewart sort of taught me that very early. Kurt Busch went past, snapped this thing sideways, and off he went through turns 3 and 4 at Atlanta. And I just went, I don't know, I have no idea how I'm ever going to do that without crashing. and I did crash quite a lot.
Deep respect for a sport that's very different but similar.
Oh yeah, massive respect for the NASCAR drivers. They're very, very talented people. Yeah, a completely different discipline. You know, I'd grown up driving different cars that were all a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, the same ilk. And then I got in this thing, and everything I'd learned, everything, just roll up in a ball and throw it away. Absolutely useless to me.
Wow. Unbelievable. So now Jimmy, who I mentioned has been on the show, talked about that transition and how much you have helped him. What are you trying to still teach Jimmy now in year 2 of his IndyCar adventure?
Well, I hate to use horse analogies because it makes Jimmy laugh, because Jimmy's always trying to persuade my wife to buy more horses. He thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. But he's a thoroughbred. You've got to constantly pull back on the reins here at Indy, for instance, because he just wants to go. And Jimmy's he's one of the most committed, competitive people I've ever met. You don't win 7 Cup championships without being that way. So here, for instance, it's like, okay, let's just step by step, the same as we would do with any other driver, the same as we did with Alex Palou last year, Marcus Ericsson before that, Felix Rosenquist, Max Chilton. It's just step by step. And the good thing with Jimmy, it maybe sets him a little bit apart. He has that mindset of a 7-time champion, but he has the sort of the hunger to learn of a rookie, and the enthusiasm of a rookie on the ovals. You know, second year on the road and street courses, but
first time at Indianapolis,
first time at Indy, and yeah, so he's picked it up really quickly. I mean, his first run yesterday in traffic, I was like, okay, this looks good. He's watching the data and he's not doing anything crazy. Jimmy's used to driving a car with a lot of yaw, the back of the car sliding, and you can't really do that with an Indy car. And so it's just making sure he keeps it within the sweet spot. But you know, we've had dinner the last 2 nights, with breakfast this morning. He just wants information all the time, and he's not afraid to work. He could be sitting on the beach the whole time with his girls, not interested, just wants to work, just the whole time, wants to push himself. He's always talks about challenging himself.
Wow. Do you get nervous when he goes out on the track?
Oh, I get nervous when they all go out on the track.
Yeah.
To drive the car, I was as calm as you like. My pulse was set. I think the maximum I ever got to in the car was like 140 or something. Whatever. Watching these guys, I'm like, oh my, you know,
200.
It's just terrifying. And I just think, how did I do that? I was talking to Gordon Murray yesterday, and I sent him a picture of turn 1. He's talking about the speeds we would go in there and the opposite lock and stuff. And I just thought, what was I thinking? And he said, what were you thinking?
Let's talk about Gordon Murray and the hypercar that you had the chance to get into, George, as it's known. What do you think of that?
Well, George was the first mule. George was an Ultima with the T50 V12 Cosworth in it, and the gearbox and everything from X-Track. But so the powertrain was pretty good. Otherwise, George is a bit ropey, to be honest. But it was just a proof of concept. The T50 itself, I've driven a lot of the XP cars now. And it's just mighty. It's absolutely mighty. It's it weighs 980 kilos, 650 horse. You've got that beautiful V12 that revs to 12,000. The 6-speed manual box, everything is the center driving position. It does what it says on the tin. It's the best supercar in the world. It's going to rewrite the books, the rule books, and when with electrification coming, hybrids and that sort of stuff, this is probably the full stop on the internal combustion engine, and it's quite something. So when I got the call from Gordon to come and help, it's one of those dream conversations you have, and it's brilliant to learn from him. It's just brilliant to be involved, to drive the car, and I can't wait to get mine, which I think will be in a couple of years.
What does Gordon Murray mean to the world of automotive?
Gordon he's a rock star, isn't he? He's a genius rock star. He comes up with these ideas, and people are just like, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. You just watch how he thinks outside the box. And anytime I get to spend with him, I learn so much. We do filming some days, and there was one in particular we sat for pretty much 8 hours and just snippets of filming in between. And I left feeling so much smarter than I arrived. is a great ability to make complicated things. It makes great an ability to explain them simply, so people like me can understand. So I think it's one of his great gifts. But he just, he's absolutely militant about weight loss and making sure the car is as light as it can be, and he's got a vision for these cars, whether it's T50 or now T33, and he's got a team of people backing him up there. But it's his vision of what this car is going to be.
Does he get the kind of attention that he deserves?
I think from us
in the context, and right, yes.
I think from us sort of petrol heads, I think people going to Goodwood with him is brilliant. I love it. Just stand back and watch people just be in awe of him. He has that effect. It's like I say, he is that. Him and George Harrison were best mates, and I think of him as a rock star. He's just that. He's got that personality as well. So special guy. And you watch when he talks about the next project, but T50, how excited he is by it, and that's infectious.
You put a collection of personalities together in a book called The Romance of Racing a while back. Who in that, if you were to pick out, I know this is very difficult, but if you were to pick out 3 or 4 folks who you highlighted in The Romance of Racing, I see your mind is going here. Who would they, and this is not to exclude but who's been the most impactful for you?
So I did that book, Romance of Racing, with my great friend Andy Holbury, who I've known since my very first day racing cars. And he was editor at Autosport, editor at Racer for a while. And we just did that as a bit of a fun project. And then it came out round about my accident. And then we sort of were looking through it, and him and I then sort of went, oh my God, we forgot so-and-so. Oh, how could we forget? So we want to do Romance of Racing 2, those we forgot. And there were some glaring omissions there. Most impactful, I mean, he's not in the book, my dad.
Yeah.
I talk about Jim Clark and I talk about Jackie Stewart, but my ultimate hero is my dad. And without him and his passion and his perseverance, along with my mum's, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't have that I Love Me building back in Scotland full of trophies and cars and stuff. But as far as pure racing, I think it's got to be Jackie Stewart, who even today had dinner with him. My wife Ellie and I had dinner with him and Helen 3-4 weeks ago, and I still, to this day, I ask him. I go to him for advice because he's just such a special person, but so smart. I'll tell you a little story. 2007, sitting in this parking lot in the 500 during practice, and I had a problem with the balance of the car, and I couldn't fix it. And during the practice week, my phone, I'd get back to the bus, the motorhome, and it would say, missed call, Jackie Stewart. Jackie's called again. Anyway, it rained one day, so I called Jackie back, and he's like, I'm doing my book. I just want to fact check a couple of things. Your typical Jackie does it himself, doesn't get somebody to phone you. So he did the fact check. He said, how's it going? And I said, I've got this problem, Jackie. I'm coming off of turn 2 with the wind in this direction. This is happening. That's happening. And he said, well, bear in mind, Jackie stopped driving the year I was born, stopped racing. And he said, you don't remember that thing I taught you? When it does that, you do this, you do that. Oh, yeah. So the next day I went out, I did it. I did what he said. Boom. Fixed the problem.
Wow. Incredible. Why are Europeans so good at road racing?
Because we grew up doing it. We grew up from a very early age doing it. And I think we almost, with road racing, we had a bit of a head start on let's just talk Europe against the US right now. I think we had a head start, and I think that it's such a well-established business there now, and drivers come from all the world still to race there, and I think it's still a harder school to race and to learn to race in Europe than maybe in the US. And the US is improving with that, but there's still nothing like coming through that European school of racing, I think. But you can definitely see that whether it's the road to Indy, there's so many. It's definitely getting stronger, shall we say?
Yeah, and when you look at where the racing world is right now, and the talent that exists, at a level, whether it's IndyCar or Formula One, what strikes you the most about how drivers are changing?
Probably age, I would say. There's a Max
lot younger,
Verstappen,
aren't they? Yeah,
a lot younger.
Exactly.
Make me feel really old. I mean, I'm like, I raced against his dad. I raced against his dad. Max, I think, is he started so young to come to F1 at 17 and be competitive straight away, and whether that's simulators as well, but I think it's also just starting so early. But then you get somebody like Alonso or Seb Vettel who are still competitive, at a more advanced age, shall we say. IndyCar, you've got the same thing. You've got these young kids all coming in, but then you've still got Scott Dixon, Will Power, Tony Kanaan, all these guys of my generation really who still get it done, and it's great to see that battle of the generations.
And when you think about what happened last year in Formula One, it must just absolutely surprise you. The intensity that's around the sport, the talent that exists, like you said, at that age level now. And it seems like a new era of racing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very competitive right now. And it's nice to see. I feel motor racing is really blossoming again. IndyCar is definitely, with Roger Penske and his organization at the helm, is blossoming. The teams and the commitment from the team owners and the sponsors, it's all improving. The TV numbers are up, all that sort of stuff. Attendance figures, the passion from the fans, which is the most important thing, that definitely seems to be still there, and more fans are coming, so that's good. F1, the Netflix thing, it's a lot of BS and it's fake and all that, but it's really brought a lot of people in and got a lot of people interested. A lot of people in, hasn't it though? And it's been great to see Formula One be so open, because it was very much a closed place before to get in the paddock, or any of that stuff. It was just so closed down, and everything with first answer was no. And Liberty, I think, have opened it up a bit, and then Stefano Domenicali, who I'm a massive fan of. I think he's such a cool guy. It's all improving. And then look at sports car, LMDH, hypercar, all that, GT3. I think sports cars are for golden age too.
You are not allowing roots to take hold around you. You have a considerable car collection of extraordinary vehicles. You race in vintage events. You're coaching drivers for Chip Ganassi, obviously. You're broadcasting Formula E. Is this where you saw yourself 10 years ago?
No, I saw myself still racing.
Still racing?
Yeah, I saw myself still racing, as far as professionally. And, obviously that didn't happen with the accident at Houston. So I was lucky to be offered these things. Chip was like, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Yes. I get to hang about with the same people I went into battle with to win those IndyCar championships and 500s. And I get to stay in IndyCar paddock, which I love. The FE thing is such a challenge for me to be a broadcaster, because it's not my natural thing. So I've really enjoyed doing that. As you said, the Gordon Murray thing is just, I can't believe I get to go to work. It's not really work. It's a dream come true for a petrol head like me. And then the historic racing is, I love to do that. I love to drive those cars. Whether it's a Goodwood, I drove a Lotus Elan last week at Donington with a great friend of mine. So yeah, it's busy. It's a busy life with two young girls at home, Ellie and I, and that keeps us busy. So life's good though. Life's good.
What's the biggest challenge among those things that you just mentioned? Where do you find your greatest challenge? Is it in the broadcast booth?
It's balancing everything, I think, first of all. This is more my natural home, doing what I do now with Chip Ganassi, and the drivers and the team here. But the broadcast booth, yeah, that's a challenge, just to do a good job. And it's interesting with the race. The race finishes, you win, you're second, you're third, whatever. You kind of know how you went. With broadcasting, it's more subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, you never know whether you're doing a good job in front of the microphone or not.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
But there you go. You have a mentor again, and a guy who helped you in racing can help you in broadcasting, and Mr. Stewart, who spent so much time in the Formula One booth.
Yeah, absolutely. He covered Indy as well, didn't he? NASCAR, that yellow jacket. I'm not wearing the yellow jacket. I'll do that.
Has he given you some tips?
We have not really. There was a point last year, we were at London, the E-Prix in London, and the XL, and I was doing a track guide, which I do before every race, and I go very much like I do with the Ganassi guys, look at every surface, every bump, every painted line, all this sort of stuff, the corners, and I do sort of a 2-minute piece. Anyway, I'm looking at this area of the circuit, I'm down on my hands and knees, and I'm looking, and this pair of shoes appear. I know this because he told me, these handmade George Cleverly shoes. And I look and I go, no, those shoes. I look up and there's the tartan trousers. And I look up and I'm literally on my hands and knees looking at the circuit. And Jackie goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm earning money, Jackie. He's like, good lad. Oh yeah. And we had a bit of a chat for a minute, and then he went off to his appearance. But it was just such a funny meeting in the middle of a circuit.
Yeah. Let's play a little game as it relates to vehicles, because I know that you're an enormous vehicle guy, and I want to talk about your car collection and what you like that's in your collection. But I'm going to ask you to give one-word answers for certain cars. We're going to dig into the Dario. This is your analysis and opinion section of the program. Tell me what pops into your head when I say these vehicles. And again, we'll limit it to just one or two words.
Okay.
Knowing how much you love cars, I know that you will have thoughts on these. Jaguar XKE.
Pretty.
Mm-hmm. Ford 65 Mustang.
Ooh, Goodwood.
Citroën 2CV.
Don't get them.
Lotus Cortina.
Jim Clark.
Jim Clark, yeah. Ferrari F40.
My baby.
Yeah, I was going to say yours would be the word that would pop into my head.
Yeah.
Porsche.
23 years and counting I've had mine.
23 years. Don't take it out in the rain either, do you?
Never.
No. Porsche Spider.
Want one.
Ferrari Daytona.
Got one.
Singer Porsche. And we've had Rob Nicholson on the show, by the way.
Yeah. One word. Finally here. Mm-hmm.
Hertz rental car.
Best behavior.
Let's talk about that for a second. Drivers are notorious for using rental cars fairly well. Do you have a rental car story?
The only one I have doesn't involve me. I honestly, I'm very well behaved in rental cars. I once was racing at Nürburgring in the DTM, and Jan Magnussen, Kevin's dad, I'm that old. So Jan,
once again to the father part of the program.
Exactly. Jan and I were sort of 21 at the time, and my dad was there with some friends. He's like, and I was going to fly home, but they had a car, and I said, I'll just go with you guys. So I said to Jan, hey Jan, would you take my rental car back to I think it was Cologne? And yeah, no problem, man. That's cool. Yeah. Anyway, a month later, the Mercedes travel lady calls me. I'm just, Dario, where's your rental car? From Nürburgring. Nürburgring. No idea. Nürburgring. Oh, I'll give it to Jan. Hang on. So I call Jan and go, Jan, what did you do with the rental car? He went, rental car. Oh, I left the circuit late. I was late for my flight, so I just abandoned it out in front of the terminal. Great. So once they found it in the pound at Cologne Airport, then they paid the month charges and the late fees and all that. Yeah. So I never lent Jan a rental car after
Never lent again.
No.
Dario, if somebody comes up to you and asks you, what's the best automotive event to attend or to watch or to participate in, what are your answers? We'll start with attend.
There's so many good ones. Top of my list is always Goodwood Revival.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I've had so many wonderful times there, and our family, myself, Ellie, the girls, Marino, Holly, Luca, we've got so many memories at that event, and the Duke of Richmond takes such good care of us. So Goodwood absolutely is the best one on in the UK and Europe. I've never been to Villa d'Este. Quite fancy that. The Quail on this side of the pond. Wow. Quail's pretty special.
Yeah, agreed.
And obviously Pebble, but the Quail is so intimate. And so Michael Kaduri and Philip Kaduri, they've got petrol running through their veins, so they know what they're doing. They do it right. They do it through passion, not through anything else. And that's the same with I think that's the same with the Duke of Richmond.
And how about to watch?
Again, I go back to Goodwood. I think to go and stand and watch is something very, very special as a historic event. Modern day doesn't get any better than Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
To stand and watch that, the pre-race, but then lap one when they come hauling down into turn one. Again, as I say, I'm looking.
I could see you're putting your hands over your face.
Yeah.
To participate in.
Indy 500.
Yeah.
Modern stuff, Indy 500. Otherwise, I think anything at Goodwood Revival members meeting. And I like the festival. I like the festival of speed. But I'm a little biased. Some of the cars I've been allowed to take up the hill is ridiculous.
Let's get into your own collection. Since we talked about a few things, what are you most proud of that you have within your garage? Now all of your vehicles are in Scotland now, correct?
There's a lot of them actually. We live just outside London, and a lot of the cars are there just now. I keep a good few of them in Scotland, because the roads are just so great. I have some of the best driving roads in the world within 5 minutes of my house in Scotland. That is not the case where we live in England, I have to say. Really not the case. So there's some of them I haven't driven in a while, which is a shame.
And which in the collection do you admire the most? I mean, you mentioned the F40, so I'm guessing that is the baby of the bunch.
I think it used to be. I always used to say the F40 the house would go before the F40, and now I would say the Carrera GT probably. Okay. I've had that 10-12 years, and it's the most wonderful car. So it was so underrated for a long time. I think what I do is I tend to, if I'm buying cars and I decide if they're keepers or they're just not. And right now I'm in a stage, I've got a lot of keepers, a lot of things. They all do very different things, and I'm in the fortunate position that I have all these things, and I love them. I love all the cars that I've got right now.
I mentioned one of the other areas of passion for you, and the fact that you're now involved with Formula E. Are we going to learn to embrace electric car racing as a society, as race fans?
No, to me, Formula E is a brilliant addition to the landscape of motorsport. And I hope it doesn't take over from internal combustion stuff, because there's an entertainment value too. And I think the racing Formula E provides is stunning. Really, really cool racing. It's not for everyone. I love it. I love how close it is. I love all the battles. I love the circuits. But I think it's an addition. It's an addition to Formula One. It's an addition to IndyCar, sports cars, all those things. So that's my view on it. I think it's the boss, Carlos Tavares of Stellantis, said the other day that it's going to be interesting. F1 and Formula E are kind of on converging paths, and how's that going to go? Carlos probably knows more than me because he's a pretty smart man, very smart man. And but again, he's a petrol head. He races a Chevron B19 in his spare time.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He is a passionate racer, weekend racer. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we're in a fortunate position just now. When you look at people at the heads of a lot of these car companies, they're racing people, and that's a nice position to be in for anybody that loves cars and racing.
For Chip Ganassi Racing, do you do any driver scouting?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's part of my job. Whether that's driver scouting, engineering scouting, basically whatever Chip tells me. Looking after the drivers is only a small part of it. Making sure that the team's all working together, just helping this wonderful group of people to, in any way I can, to just be, if we can be more successful. So we've had some interesting, moments with different drivers.
Any you want to share? You can leave the names out.
Well, I think the oddest one was probably I had to almost, bizarrely enough, have a job interview with Kevin Magnussen. So we're talking to Kevin about IndyCar and sports car racing, and they said, "Would you call Kevin and just check that he really wants to do this and have a discussion?" And as we mentioned, I've known Kevin's dad. I was Kevin's dad's teammate for a long time. We're pals, And I was sitting there with Kevin having this conversation on Zoom, and it was just so bizarre to have to do that. And you could just tell Kevin just loves racing, absolutely loves it. And at that point, he was fed up with F1. Now, to see this opportunity he's been given and see the way he's grabbed it again in the Haas, it's so cool. So happy for him. He's every person who came across him here at Chip Ganassi Racing just thinks the world of him.
Yeah, wonderful. Finally, give listeners maybe an understanding about the Ganassi Racing Mountain Test Facility. This is something that it's a bit of a secret track. Do you want to share a little bit of that?
Can we go back to talking about my cars? Yeah, in all seriousness, I can't talk about that. But if you want to talk about those cars, a bit more, I'm all up for that. No, the Ganassi thing, it's we were, absolutely sworn to secrecy about this thing, and then one day Chip did an interview and said, "Yeah, we got this tunnel." I went, "What? I can't believe he's talking about it." But it's up there. We don't use it really that much anymore. We can't really use it with the restrictions and stuff on testing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world that you're living in right now, Dario. What are you going to do next? What is next for you 10 years down the road?
I don't know. I don't know what things are going to look like. Part of my jobs now, I manage Alex Lynn, who won Sebring this year. Alex and his dad Sean, who's a great historic driver, asked me to do that a few years ago, and that's been a lot of fun. I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping Alex put him in a good position and watching him thrive. So that's something I'd like to do more of. But I think it's important to have almost a one-on-one relationship as well. You can't be managing 100 drivers.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're making an impact on the next generation to come. And who knew that Dario Franchitti would be the one who is now bringing the next era into racing? Because it seems to me that you should still be on the track. You're not old enough.
Oh, that's part of it. I don't know. I mean, I had a chance and I had opportunities to do sports car racing. So 2015, whatever, with the 919 Porsche, but obviously the accident didn't allow that. But I feel very fortunate about what I was able to do, what I was able to achieve. And the life it provided too. I mean, the toys it provided, all these cars and stuff. Those didn't come. Those came through racing, through being successful in racing, and that's that was always fun. It was always fun to sort of have a successful race, or win a 500 and go out and buy some crazy car.
Yeah. One final thing: when you won the first Indy 500, what crazy car did you go out and buy?
First 500. I think it was quite restrained. It was a GT3 997 GT3 Gen 1. Bought that. Loved that car. Should never have sold it. 2010, I think that was Cura GT. 2012, I think I hung off on 2012, and then I bought the Daytona Spider a bit later, quite a few years later. But I'd saved the cash from winning that last race. So, like I say, it allowed me to buy some really fun cars.
Well, congratulations again on those 3 victories. Now 10 years, unbelievably, that it's been. We are getting older, Dario, but I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts here on cars and culture and the month of May at Indy. There is one name among very few that rises to the top, and it is yours.
Thanks, Jason.
The automobile is one of the most important inventions that revolutionized the modern world. In America, the rich history of car culture runs deep as technology continues to shape the future of the industry. Jason Stein,
former publisher of Automotive News,
is here to share the stories of people passionate about cars, from industry leaders and innovators to car-obsessed celebrities. Buckle up as Jason takes you inside the boardroom, onto the track, and around the bend on Cars and Culture on SiriusXM Business Radio.